They were out early one morning, panning in the stream for gold, surrounded by the rising mountains. Old prospector with a tale for two, he brushed around in the pan, pointing out what lay within was ordinary sand. He began with his story about 20 years before, and a younger man who sought his fortune. With a tear or two he told of searching for his treasure, but making known the gold he sought was ordinary pleasure. There were years of doing without, and there were years of plenty. He started thinking that life was never steady, excepting when the bills came in and he had no money to pay. Whiskey had never tasted better ordinarily. Concluded his story as it filled the air with a laugh, saying how he found the Lord and Savior, and how he found the river of life by which his day unfolds, and pointed out what stands within is not ordinary gold, and pointing out what stands within is not ordinary gold. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. Through His word we can see His wonders, signs and miracles of His love. We can return His love with devotion, standing on His word before all men. We are His beloved and His chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon His promises. can see his wonders, signs and miracles of his love. We can return his love with devotion, standing on his word before all men. We are his beloved and his chosen, walking in this life renewed with peace. Trust in God, believe upon his promises. Trust in God, believe upon his promises. Believe upon his promises.
Welcome. My name is Mark Wallace. This is True North Studio, and our topic today is lucky. Lucky. I know that many of you get an eye twitch when you hear the word luck used in a Christian teaching, which is partly why I'm using it. Is there such a thing as luck? Is luck godly or is it devilish? Before you answer that, answer this. Why do some people seem to have all the luck, catch all the breaks, see fortune shine down upon them, live a super blessed life, while others seem to get beat at every turn? There must be a reason. Because being super blessed is exactly how God designed life for everyone. Excuse me, I have the hiccups. Matthew 5:45, for he maketh his sun to rise on the evil and on the good, and sendeth rain on the just and on the unjust. Okay? In that God rains down blessings on both the evil and on the good people of the world, why is there such a marked difference between how some people seem to be more blessed or more lucky than others? Why is there a noticeable difference between the lucky and the unlucky, even among Christians? Have lucky people found a way to persuade Providence to smile upon them? Have some people found a way to crack the luck code? Honestly, I think it's possible. The ancient Dutch word luck, L-U-C, originally meant happiness or good fortune. It meant you were blessed and amazing things were happening to you. Today, the Cambridge Dictionary defines luck as the force that causes things, especially good things, to happen to you by chance and not as a result of your own efforts or abilities. In other words, you have no control over your luck. They say that luck is an outside force that decides things for you. Now, somehow the word luck morphed from happiness and blessing into a dice-rolling roulette wheel Vegas term. The church ladies with their button-down preachers in tow forbade the use of the word luck at home or in church because it seems so worldly, so chancy, so sexy. I'll show you that the church ladies are dead wrong if we go by luck's older definition. Today I'll highlight the 4 things that all lucky people do that make them seem lucky, whether they're Christians or not. These 4 simple actions can be learned and practiced by anyone and should be. I believe that any of us can adopt these 4 super simple behaviors used by all lucky people so that we too can harvest the good that God planted all over the earth just for you. Are you ready to get luckier? The 4 things all lucky people do. Professor Richard Wiseman did a 10-year scientific study into the knowledge of luck. He studied hundreds of people. He discovered, quote, lucky people generate their own good fortune by way of 4 basic principles. 1, all lucky people are skilled at noticing chance opportunities. 2, all lucky people listen to their gut. 3, All lucky people are eternally optimistic, and 4, all lucky people find some positive about every negative. And we're going to go over each of these and then make a little more sense. Number 1, all lucky people are skilled at noticing chance opportunities. Dr. Wiseman said, quote, "Lucky people are skilled at creating, noticing, and acting upon chance opportunities. They do this in various ways, which include building and maintaining a strong network of friends, adopting a relaxed attitude to life, and being open to new experiences," end of quote. We may call it being observant, or keeping it real, or being in the game, or being in the moment. Matthew 6:34 from the Message says, "Give your entire attention to what God is doing right now, and don't get worked up about what may or may not happen tomorrow." See, God will help you deal with whatever hard things come up when the time comes. Have you ever driven down the street and noticed a house or a building that you had never noticed before and wondered why you never saw it? Well, we all have. The reason we never saw it before is because we made it a habit at that spot to always look at what's on the other side of the street. That house was always there, but we just never noticed it. Why? Because we're looking the other way. I ask you, how many of God's blessings have we bypassed because we were looking the other way? In that God has already supplied all your need according to His riches and glory, why don't we see it? Philippians 4:19. If He's promised health and prosperity and we haven't found it, I guarantee that we were looking the wrong way. 3 John 2. Why do I say that? Because no good thing will He withhold from them that walk uprightly. Psalm 84:11. Everything you will ever need has already been planted in a place you can find if you're observant. Dr. Wiseman mentions that unlucky people are usually so set in their ways that they're not open to opportunity. Quote, "Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity." Luck is what happens when preparation meets opportunity. Seneca the Younger, 1st century Roman philosopher. Acting on chance opportunities reminds me of a kid on my youth baseball team while I was living on an Air Force base in Japan. Our team was called the Astros. For 2 years running, we were league champs. We never lost a game. The weakest link on our team was a kid named BZ. I know what you're thinking. Yes, he looked and acted exactly like his name sounds. The kid struck out every single time at bat, and we all expected him to strike out and every time he was at bat. Nobody hated him. He was just BZ, and BZ always struck out. Even all the parents in the stands, including his own, would nod in agreement when BZ came at the bat. After all, it was a given. BZ always struck out. Even BZ expected BZ to strike out. BZ was the kid famous on base for breaking his arm while trying to parachute out of his second-story base housing bedroom window while holding the four corners of his bed sheet. Some of you had a friend like BZ. Well, one day BZ's luck changed. A door opened and he ran with it. He was up to bat. BZ walked up to the plate with his typical unsure walk, adjusted his crooked glasses, and stood with the bat on his shoulder as the first pitch thudded into the catcher's thick leather mitt. "Strike one," the umpire grunted. BZ didn't want to go down just standing there, so he swung wildly as the second pitch whizzed past him. "Strike two!" The guy on deck, the next batter, one of the best hitters on the team, tapped the dirt from his cleats with his wooden bat, and he just waited for the inevitable, waited for BZ to strike out. The third pitch, a fastball, was way low, but BZ swung wildly at it anyway. A swing and a miss. Before the ump could snort, "Strike three! You're out of here!" Something happened. As luck would have it, the low fastball blew right past the catcher and rolled all the way to the backstop. BZ froze, but everyone in both stands, even the kids from the opposing team, stood up and screamed, "Run, BZ, run!" BZ ran. In Little League Baseball, there's an odd rule. A batter may attempt to advance to first base on an uncaught third strike. If the catcher mishandles a ball on the third strike, the batter can run to first base just like he had hit the ball. But he just needs to outrun the catcher's throw. Well, BZ, unused to having a second chance, having never made it to first base in 2 years, ran awkwardly. It was like a cartoon character. He looked like he was running on ice with bees chasing him. As he got close to first base, he did something nobody does. He slid head first. The catcher, in all the excitement, fans screaming, overthrew the first baseman and the ball rolled helplessly into right field. The crowds on both sides of the field were all on their feet now. Kids with faces against the chain link fences were all screaming, "Run, Beezy, run!" Beezy got up and ran to second base. Again, he slid face first. The befuddled right fielder, adrenaline surging, overthrew his teammate at second. The ball rolled deep into left field. Now things went into slow motion. Even the birds in the sky seemed to stop what they were doing to watch the miracle of Chofu. BZ and his buck-tooth smile got up and ran with all his might to third base, but this time he didn't slide. He just kept running. Our third base coach waved him wildly on toward home. Something changed in BZ. This time he lightly rounded the corner of third base like a practiced pro. Unbelievably, they overthrew third base and the ball rang into the chain link fence near the visitor dugout. BZ, not taking any chances, slid face first into home, and both sides of the crowds went nuts. BZ got a home run on errors. It was the only time he scored the entire season, but it was epic. Because of the catcher's mistake, BZ took the opportunity to run and run and run. That was his lucky day. It makes me think of an Old Testament record about noticing opportunity. In 2 Kings 6, we read about the account of the siege of Samaria by the Syrian army. A siege means the army surrounds a town to starve them out. No food gets in, no people get out. The siege went on and on. People were getting hungrier and hungrier. Food was so scarce that only rich people could afford it. People were literally dying of hunger. Things were so desperate that one woman even cooked and ate her own baby. But then at the beginning of chapter 7, the prophet Elijah speaks by revelation and said that by this time tomorrow, food will be available in abundance and prices will be restored to pre-famine levels. The town thought it was just crazy talk. Only 4 men acted on this opportunity, this random revelation, 2 Kings 7, 3 and 4. And there were 4 leprous men at the entering of the gate, and they said one to another, "Why sit we here till we die?" These grotesquely deformed men, these lepers who were dying from the outside in, noticed an opportunity to live. They said to each other, "If we say, we will enter into the city, then the famine is in the city, and we shall die there. And if we sit still here, we die also. Now therefore come, and let us fall into the host of the Syrians. If they save us alive, we shall live. And if they kill us, we shall but die. No matter what we're doing, we're going to die if we don't do something." 2 Kings 7, 5 and 6. And they rose up in the twilight to go into the camp of the Syrians. And when they were come to the uttermost part of the camp of Syria, behold, there was no man there. For the Lord had made the sound of the host of the Syrians to hear a noise of chariots, the noise of horses, and even the noise of a great host. And the Syrians said one to another, "Lo, the king of Israel hath hired against us the kings of the Hittites and the kings of the Egyptians to come upon us." The Syrian army thought that the powerful Egyptian and Hittite armies were bearing down on them, so they ran for the hills and left everything. They left behind their tents filled with tons of food and supplies. These 4 lepers saw a chance opportunity, made a life and death decision, and saved the people in Samaria just like the prophet had said. These unlikely heroes were part of God's plan to save the city. They took advantage and of the opportunity. BZ also took advantage of a chance opportunity, and he scored a home run, his first time on base in 2 years. Lucky people are always aware of opportunities outside their normal routine. People like us, like you and me, know that God can and will show us the abundance He's already supplied. All we have to do is keep our eyes and our hearts open and look for that opportunity. Number 2, all lucky people listen to their gut. We just talked about being aware of our surroundings and being open to new possibilities. Now we turn that focus inward. Dr. Wiseman said, quote, lucky people make effective decisions by listening to their intuition and gut feelings. They also take steps to actively boost their intuitive abilities, end of quote. Lucky people get good at noticing that feeling on the inside. You moms talk about your mother's intuition. You budding detectives call it a hunch. You business people say, go with your gut. We Bible lovers call it that still small voice of God. Some people just call it luck. Now I'm going to tell you the story of the lucky man who survived 2 atomic bombs. Mr. Yamaguchi was a hard-working family man who lived in Japan during World War II. During the war, his boss sent him to visit the Mitsubishi factory in the city of Hiroshima. The day he visited his company's industrial plant in Hiroshima, the Americans dropped the first atomic bomb on that city. Almost 140,000 people died that day from one single bomb. Unlike most, Mr. Yamaguchi sustained only a few minor injuries, but was able to return to his home in Nagasaki and go right back to work. Well, 3 days later, while he was being yelled at by his supervisor back in Nagasaki for telling the other workers that one single American bomb destroyed the entire city of Hiroshima, a second atomic bomb was dropped. During that very meeting with his boss, the atomic bomb over Nagasaki exploded, killing maybe 75,000 more people. During both blasts, Mr. Yamaguchi was somehow he was in a spot that was shielded from the blast. I don't know how it happened, but somehow he didn't get affected. Standing just a few inches one way or the other would have ended his life. Ever since then, Mr. Yamaguchi tried to live a quiet, normal life. He told everyone that he believed God planted a path for him. He considered himself lucky. Mr. Yamaguchi had made it a habit of listening to his gut and lived to the ripe old age of 93. There's a story in the book of Kings where a prophet of God named Elijah took a bold stand against an evil king and queen, Ahab and Jezebel, and 450 of their false prophets. To thank him for his service to God, Jezebel sent out a kill order to eliminate him. He knew she meant business, so he ran for his life. Elijah ran and hid for 40 days in the wilderness, ending up in a desert cave with no food. God, knowing Elijah needed to get moving and get out of that stupid cave, asked him, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" 1 Kings 19:9. He answered the Creator, but played the victim card by telling God that nobody listens to him anymore. Nobody loved him. Nobody likes me. God had to remind him to allow the soft sound of his inner voice to overpower his spinning thoughts. That's not easy to do. 1 Kings 19:11 and 12 from the Message. Then he was told, "Go, stand at the mountain at attention before God. God will pass by." A hurricane ripped through the mountains and shattered the rocks before God. But God wasn't to be found in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake. But God wasn't in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, fire. But God wasn't in the fire. And after the fire, a gentle and quiet whisper, a still small voice. We all want the voice of God to be loud and bold and magnificent. But the voice of God, your inner voice, that hunch, that still small voice, is usually as soft as a gentle and quiet whisper on a morning walk in the garden. Can you still hear it? Can you still hear it with all the stuff going on in the world? I know you do. Quote, "The day you decide to do is your lucky day," Japanese proverb. Lucky people listen to their gut. Blessed people like you listen to the still small voice of God. To close out this second section, we've talked about 2 things that all lucky people seem to do. The first one is being aware, being observant, being open to that opportunity we never noticed before. The next one was listening to your gut, noticing that still small voice. And you're pretty good at both. Now, number 3, all lucky people are eternally optimistic. Dr. Wiseman also said, quote, "Lucky people are certain that the future will be bright." Over time, that expectation becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because it helps lucky people persist in the face of failure and positively shapes their interactions with other people. End of quote. Wiseman used the term self-fulfilling prophecy. I once knew a minister who repeatedly told me that every man in their family has died before they turned 55. It seemed weird for someone to say that out loud, especially a minister, and so often. Years later, I received a phone call telling me that my friend had passed away. I asked how old he was when he died, and the voice on the phone said he was 54. My friend called it self-fulfilling prophecy. If you can determine the year of your death, you can determine the year of your deliverance. That's a self-fulfilling prophecy. All lucky people are always optimistic. They don't speak negatives about themselves or their life. They know the consequences. An ultra-positive attitude must be developed no matter what's going on around you. Quote, luck affects everything. Let your hook always be cast in the stream where you least expect it. There will be a fish. Ovid, 1st century. I know that sometimes we need to pull up our collars, tuck in our chins and push into the wind. But it's important to get through the hard times by staying optimistic in our expectations. That's what all lucky people do. All lucky people. Have you ever heard of a super lucky Australian guy named Bill Morgan? Bill loved his family and loved his life. He maintained a positive worldview until one day he was crushed in a horrific car crash and was pronounced dead at the scene. To everyone's surprise, 14 minutes later, he woke up. Everything seemed good until he fell into a coma. After 12 days on life support, his loving family gave up on him and decided there was no hope. So they pulled the plug. But once again, he woke up. To celebrate his new lease on life, Bill bought a scratch-it lottery ticket, and lo and behold, he won a new car. Well, the local news channel heard about Bill's string of luck and thought his story was so amazing, so far-fetched, that they asked him to reenact the winning moment. They bought him yet another lottery ticket. Bill Morgan, with his loving family at his side, scratched the new ticket and was caught on camera winning $250,000. Bill Morgan lived on the sunny side of the street. He lived and prospered because he was super optimistic. Like you, Bill always expected good things to happen to him. Here's a Bible story about the benefits of being eternally optimistic in a negative situation. Once upon a time, the prideful king Nebuchadnezzar had a huge golden image erected to show his power, strength, and glory. He liked it so much that he commanded all the people in his kingdom to bow down and worship this image whenever they heard a certain song played. Anyone who disobeyed would be thrown into the burning fiery furnace, sort of like playing musical chairs of death. 3 young Hebrew men, slaves of Nebuchadnezzar, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, refused to bow down to the king's national idol when they heard that song, and they were quickly arrested. They said, and this is from Daniel 3:16 and through 18 from The Voice, Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to defend our actions in this matter. We are ready for the test. If you throw us into the blazing furnace, then the God we serve is able to rescue us from the blazing fire and release us from your power, your majesty. But even if he does not, O king, you can be sure that we will still not serve your gods and we will not worship the golden statue you erected. Furious, Nebuchadnezzar flew into a rage and ordered the furnace to be heated 7 times hotter than it was normally heated. Well, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were bound tightly with ropes, tighter than usual, and thrown into the flames. The fiery furnace was so hot that day that it killed the soldiers who threw them in. King Nebuchadnezzar peered into the furnace from a distance and marveled at what he saw. Daniel 3:25 from The Voice. Why do I see 4 men completely unbound walking around in the middle of the fire? They don't appear to be hurt at all. And the 4th, he appears like a son of the gods. So the king commanded the men to come out of the furnace. How many guys were thrown into the furnace? 3. How many did he see in there? 4. Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego walked out of that fiery hellhole unharmed. Not even a hair on their heads was singed. As crazy as it may seem, their clothes did not even smell like smoke. This sort of blew Nebuchadnezzar's egotistical mind. He was impressed with these young men. After that, he spoke highly of the God Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and the angel who rescued them. He commended them for being willing to give it all for what they believed in and for staring down death with such a positive and hopeful attitude. The power of God, combined with the power of a positive attitude, delivered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and all the Hebrew people that day. So first, all lucky people notice opportunities outside their normal routine. Next, all people listen to their gut. Here, all lucky people are eternally optimistic. Blessed people like you always maintain a positive mindset of hope. Number 4, all lucky people find some positive about every negative. And this final discipline found in all lucky people is our uncanny ability to control our thoughts when things are the hardest. We develop the habit of picking out the silver lining no matter how bad things get. Dr. Richard Wiseman said in an interview, quote, "Lucky people tend to see the positive side of their ill fortune. They imagine how things could have been worse." In one interview, a lucky volunteer arrived with his leg in a plaster cast and described how he had fallen down a flight of stairs. I asked him whether he still felt lucky, and he cheerfully explained that he felt luckier than before. As he pointed out, he could have broken his neck. End of quote. Controlling every thought, changing every negative thought into a positive one takes work. This is not easy because the whole world does it differently. 1 Corinthians 10:13, "There hath no temptation taken you, but such as is common to man. But God is faithful, who will not suffer you to be tempted above that ye are able, but will with the temptation also make a way to escape, that ye may be able to bear it." Our final little story is about Franz Seelach, called the luckiest unlucky man in the world. The story of Franz Seelach is so unbelievable that if it was put in a movie, you'd think it was all a lie, fabricated, pure Hollywood. Seelach cheated death 7 times by always looking for a positive way to escape. Fran was born in 1929 in the country of Croatia, and his lucky timeline goes something like this. In 1962, his first brush with death was when he was traveling through an icy canyon on a train. Suddenly the train jumped the rails and plunged into an icy river. He was pulled out of the freezing water with only a broken arm. 17 others died that day. In 1963, 1 year later, the first and last time he ever rode on an airplane, Fran was sucked out of the plane as a malfunctioning door blew open. He tumbled helplessly through the air, but miraculously landed on a large haystack. 19 others died. Then in 1966, a bus he was in skidded off an icy road and into a frigid river, drowning 4. He swam to safety with only a few cuts and bruises. Accident number 4 came in 1970 when his car caught fire as he was driving down the highway. He managed to get out of the blazing vehicle mere seconds before the fuel tank exploded. In 1973, 3 years later, a faulty fuel pump on his cheap Eastern European car spewed gasoline all over the hot engine, and it ignited, and flames blew through the air vents like a blowtorch. He escaped with his life and a little less hair. Then in 1995, he had his 6th unlucky accident when he was standing on the curb and got hit by a swerving bus. He walked away with minor injuries. In 1996, the following year, he was driving in the mountains on a narrow road. He rounded a hairpin corner only to see a UN truck fill his windshield. Without enough time to stop and nowhere to go, he overcorrected and his car plowed through the guardrails and he flew off a 300-foot cliff. He was ejected from his falling car. He sailed through the air and just so happened to land in the branches of the lone tree growing out the side of the mountain. He held on for dear life as he watched his car hit the bottom of the gorge and explode. A few years later, in 2003, 2 days after his 73rd birthday, Fran won $1 million when he purchased his first purchased his first ever lottery ticket. He decided to give most of the money away to friends and family, choosing a simple, less eventful life. Franz Selak is considered by many to be the luckiest unlucky man in the world. Somehow Fran was able to turn every negative into a positive. Just like you, he was a glass half full guy. He was a lemons into lemonade guy. And I ask you, how did Moses keep a positive, godly attitude when the entire might of the Egyptian army was bearing down on him and the million or so people he was trying to rescue from slavery? How did Noah keep building the ark for 100 years with no rain in sight? How did Esther stand up to the king and deliver her people? How did young David, a good-looking teenage kid, face down the hulking, 10-foot-tall Goliath? What did he do with his mind? How did Paul write most of the epistles while under arrest or in jail? Have you ever been in jail? Imagine receiving revelation and trying to write epistles while you're in jail or prison. How did Jesus give his entire life for us? How did he suffer the persecution, the torture of being crucified, and die for us when he was only 30 years old? How did he do it? What did he do with his mind? Doesn't Hebrews 12:2 say, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising the shame, and is set down at the right hand of the throne of God? All lucky people find some positive thing to hang on to no matter what the negative situation. So what do we do with this information? Today we saw 4 principles that all lucky people on earth apply. 4 simple actions that get them amazing results. The word luck originally meant happiness or good fortune, which is a winning mindset that can be learned, not an outside force that makes you win. All lucky people do these 4 behaviors so often they don't even notice themselves doing them anymore. That's why they seem so lucky. BZ found his opportunity. Mr. Yamaguchi followed his gut. Bill Morgan was eternally optimistic, and Franz Selak looked for the positive in every negative situation. And they will work for us too. Even those of us who understand the Word and how to operate the Spirit of God will benefit from these luck builders. After all, doesn't Romans 8:31 wrap all 4 of these into one verse? If God be for us, who can be against us? Well, all lucky people would answer, no one. No one. As you work on incorporating all 4 of these luck builders into your life, you too will begin to notice more good things happening to you and to the people you love. Look for that opportunity. Notice the still small voice. Be eternally optimistic. And for God's sake, when the pressure's on, stay positive. Hey, I think I just noticed that your eye twitch has stopped. I guess today's your lucky day. God bless.
Glad the hiccups stopped.
Yeah, they did.
They did.